everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 2 of Journal with Witch, and last week we started the series off, and it is already very intriguing, very somber, and quite the unique relationship that has developed between Asa and Makio, her aunt, and the niece. I'm very curious to see how these two characters kind of work together, because last week we just kind of saw them get to know each other and the circumstances behind them living together, and then both kind of realizing they have a little bit of eccentricities in their personality, and Makio kind of opening up and taking in Asa, but Asa kind of realizing their aunt is a little bit, different. So I am curious to see where they're going to go with this show, what we're going to do, but I'm pretty excited. And I'm excited over on the Discord because everybody seemed really happy and excited to get started as well. So before we get started, I want to go ahead and give a really quick shout out over to my Patreon. Thank you everybody on Patreon for supporting the channel, supporting the show, supporting me and my rambles about series and anime and donghua. But I also want to give a shout out to the philanthropy tier over on Patreon because they support me with a few extra dollars each month, and that is amazing. So thank you to Sunspots, to Zachiel, to username123, to Jason N, as well as Be Happy, Dana, Alex Cornejo, Violet Stardust, Destiny Marie, Diana Williams, Daniel Devorin, Damage3245, as well as Eric Ichu, Fisho Turnip, Ghostly Turnip actually, James, as well as Jessica Cullen, Lyndon, Elfreya, Murphew, Nicholas, Jack Witt, Rose Jennison, Rast, Shimoyama, Translucent Men, as well as Zero Anti-Zero, My Chua Her, Chewy, Lady Lulz, Amorphosilica, and Ian Davidson. Thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So cold front's come through, which is nice. We needed it, and I feel like in the midst of the desert, as it represents the emptiness and loneliness for Asa, we need to maybe get out of the desert and go to some cooler climate maybe in this episode. We'll see. But anyway, we're going to start with episode 2 of Journal with Witch, and we are going to get started with that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. This series is really getting good, and we're only 2 episodes in. I really like Makio. I have to say, Makio and I would like to think that I am not as socially awkward as Makio. I wouldn't describe myself as that. I wouldn't say that we're in the same realm, but Makio and we share a lot of similarities as characters, and I really appreciate that. And it's kind of cool to see somebody it's cool to see someone kind of in that same position, and I can really relate to her, and I want to root for her, and I want to root for things to happen for her. So we're going to get into that and talk about it, but I really connect with her character a lot. And meeting Daigo and Shingo, who is, I looked it up, is voiced by Suabe. I was like, girl, look, I'll go ahead and say it. I get kind of asexual, demisexual vibes from Makio, which Homegirl can relate to. But if a man with Junichi Suabe's voice had been dating me, girl, you need to get back on that. You need to get back with that, please. We're going to talk about this. I want that for her. Because I think he would be open to being with her again, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to wait. We're going to get a little further. We're not going to get off track. But I was like, girl, you were dating a man that had Junichi Suabe's voice? Are you freaking kidding me? I don't even know Japanese, and I'd be down. I'd be just like, look, I will get a translator. So let's dive into this episode and talk about it, right? We're going to talk about this episode here in 3, 2, 1. All of the details, all of the fine little details and how they work, I'm all about them. This series reminds me a lot of March Comes In Like a Lion. It reminds me of Natsume's Book of Friends. It reminds me of Skip, from Skip to Loafer, Skip and Loafer. If you've not seen those 3 series, when you're done with this video, go watch them. You should. Skip and Loafer's the shortest. Natsume's the longest. And just go from there. But they're all so good, but they're all very calm slice of life with some drama entailed in them. And this series is such a vibe. It's so chilling. Chilling not in a scary way, but just you feel your blood pressure leveling out as you're watching it. And I love that. So let's get into this with the details and everything. I want to make note, as a writer and as an English teacher, it is so intriguing to me, and language is such a funny thing, but it's the tiniest little thing. But the fact that when you have Japanese Word opened up, Microsoft Word in Japan opened up, if you write in English, or if you're in America, it's flipped and you write from top to bottom, but in Japanese you write from right to left. And it's so I want to take it and make it go 90 degrees that way. It's so funny to me, like, because of the cultural difference. Whereas you write your text in English from like left to right, up to down, and then in Japanese you're writing from right to left, and like across the screen horizontally instead of vertically. And it's such a trip. It trips me up watching it. I want to be like, what? But also, I think that Makio is an interesting character in that she gets kind of absorbed into her work, and I can relate to her in that way, because like when for example, today, I felt kind of bad because I was getting in a flow state at work. I was getting into a flow. I was getting into a rhythm. I was getting into I was working on a project, and you get into, this state of being, the flow state where you're just like, everything's going and you're typing, and my coworker kept coming to my door to tell me things, but they weren't like relevant things. They were just like, hey, did you see this video? Hey, did you do this? And I didn't want to be rude and be like, I am in a state of productivity and I'm doing really good. And I'd get like jarred and jolted and be like, okay. And then I felt like I was being kind of rude. I was like, And I'd try to go back to doing my thing, and I felt bad because I wanted to be nice, and she was being very nice and trying to just show me little things, and I was just like, oh, but I'm in my productive state. I'm doing so well. And so I felt bad today for that. So seeing Makio get kind of caught up in herself, I was like, okay, seems legit. But I do feel as if her and Asa connect really well, because Asa kind of has a little bit of I feel like Asa's absent-mindedness is more due to her immediate trauma from losing her parents, and she's still processing that, and she's still grieving, and she's still trying to recalibrate her entire system. I feel like Makio, in a sense, is kind of the long-term version of that, where she never really got recalibrated completely. Like, she's functional, she's able to be a novelist, and she's functioning in society, but she has a really good support system like Daigo and Shingo, and it seems like her friend network kind of keep her on track because they know she's a good person and they value her friendship, which kudos for being awesome friends. But I feel like she's never really gotten over. She has a lot of unresolved trauma with the sister. There's a lot of unresolved things between her and her sister, and I wonder if she's assuming that maybe Asa hasn't been able to process that as well. I feel like something's going to come out in the wash with that later on. I don't know how it's going to be addressed, but it feels like they're setting it up here. And then, Asa asking if she can do some cleaning. And at first, Makio was like, oh, you don't need to do that. And she's like, no, I want to. And honestly, whenever, if somebody you love has died or passed away, and they're like a really close person, like a family member, like a spouse or a parent or a child, a lot of people, when they're processing grief, one thing that helps to kind of distract from being sad is finding things to do, whether it's going to work, whether it's, working on a project, whether it's throwing yourself into something. A lot of ways people cope are through productivity. So for Asa to ask to clean, I mean, if it were me, and I was living with Makio, one way in which Makio and I are very different is that my residence does not look like this. Like, I'm very bad about vacuuming and dusting. Vacuuming and dusting are like the things I struggle with the most because I have no desire to do them. And so thus I throw them to the wayside, being like, oh, I have more important things to do. So in that sense, it's a rather dusty environment. I have on my actual planner that I need to dust at some point because it's been several weeks since I've dusted, and you can tell. But, as far as clutter and like mess and papers and stuff, no, it's pretty tidy in terms of that. I don't keep that. I can't do all that. That drives me crazy. Food in a car, wrappers in a car. My brother leaves wrappers in a car and I want to just like burn it. I was like, no, throw that shit away. That's gross. So that would not fly. But otherwise I can see why Makio gets a little distracted. She's like, I enjoy cleaning and I kind of want to. And she's like, then help yourself. And, Makio feels a little guilty because she's like, I'm making this kid, I feel like I'm making this kid clean up my house, but, they're offering to, so who am I to say no? I really like the intro. It's really soothing. Lots of details. Love the pastel quality of it. I want a little coffee carafe. I hadn't even thought of that. Although I have a coffee pot, so it seems like, why would you need it? What are the benefits of the toeless socks? Someone comment down below. Why would I need toeless socks? I want to be influenced. Influence me into buying toeless socks. I want to know the benefits. Like, why? Is there something in Japan of reason why they don't have the socks with toes? Okay, so we see Daigo is here. The sister is here in the middle. Funny that you have Daigo. I love Daigo having the nails that match the outfits. Love that. We're going to talk about Daigo. The sister is here. We don't know who the blonde is. We don't know who she is. I guess we're going to find out. Shingo, girl. I mean, he's not like, okay, look, hear me out. Daigo is not like, I don't want to say conventionally attractive because people will be like, he's hot. He is, but he's not like pretty boy. He looks real. Like, he looks like a real guy. Like, he has like a broader face and he's kind of more masculine and he's got like the nose. And I'm not saying he's unattractive, not at all, but he's got some age to him. Like, he's probably in his 30s. Like, he looks like a real man that you would see in real life. Whereas in some anime, it's like glossy and the guy like looks very pretty boy and stuff. No, Shingo looks like a man you would see out in public. He just has the voice of a god. Junichi Suabe has one of the sexiest anime voices I think exists. That man's voice just eludes sex appeal. It's like him and Suda. I'm just like, I mean, Miyano Mamoru, yes. Miyano Mamoru is one of the better voice actors in terms of that. But I mean, like, and Oikawa / Hisoka's voice actor, his voice is amazing. And there's like probably a dozen voice actors that you'd be like, okay, yes, a lot of sex appeal. Junichi's one of the top ones. I mean, it's one of the top ones. He just has a great appealing voice. And I'm like, girl. Anyway, we also don't know who this man is. These guys that look kind of the opposite of Shingo. He looks like a little similar. And then these students here, I'm curious. I'm very curious. Also, I'm curious if Asa will get a guitar, if she'll start singing, how that's going to go. I want to see what ends up happening. Oh, and here's the character Ruby. The character Ruby that is going through the desert. Interesting. And then the lone wolf. Okay. So, also I think it's worth noting that when we first found Asa, she was sleeping next to her grandma. We're going to come back to that because that seems relatively important. But yeah, so in any case, this episode was called Wrap, which is about wrapping the gyoza, which this episode made me want to make gyoza. Rarely have I been influenced to cook. I'm like, again, one thing Makio and I have in common is that we are both very routine with what we eat. I'm going to talk about it when we get to her schedule. But I'm not much of a cook. I really am not. If you've watched my Witch Hat Atelier kitchen videos or my Delicious in Dungeon videos, you will know that I am not the best cook, nor am I talented in cooking. I need to practice more. But this made me want to make gyoza, which is saying something. But yeah, so we cut to their home, which looks very minimalist. And it's interesting because the coffee table and the setup of the home is kind of similar. But then we see the sister saying a novel. You're actually writing a novel. Now, I think it's important, a couple things. One, the novel is in like a composition notebook. So whenever Makio tells Asa that she needs to be careful who can see her journal and not to leave it out for everyone to see, she's speaking from experience because of this moment where Asa's mother found the journal of hers and was chiding her about wanting to be a novelist. So she was projecting in that moment. And they're pretty old when this happens. Like, they look at least teenagers, if not adults. And she's like, what if I am? A novel of all things. You're so... The way she said it, she didn't finish the sentence. But it's hard to tell in that moment if she's being condescending and saying, like, you're so silly for thinking you could write a novel, or if she's trying to like joke with her and it's more of like something she was meaning to come off across as like light and kind of joking. It's hard to understand her tone in this moment, and we don't get to see the sentence finished or the aftermath, so we don't kind of get to know. But then it cuts to her like deciding to take back her words. Now, I will say, Asa's singing is very pretty. But if I was trying to work on something and somebody was singing around me the whole time, I'd be like, put on my earphones. I feel like whenever I work, it either has to be in complete silence or I have to have a lot of white noise. There's like no in between. It's like if I'm working on editing or working on writing or grading papers, I either have to have something on in the background that I've seen before, like reruns of Great British Baking Show or Drag Race, or I have to have like a YouTube video, like a deep dive analysis of like about TikTok influencers, and I can just have that on the background and not really be paying attention, or it has to be in quiet. There's like no in between. One or the other. It's just like the spectrum exists, but there's not a lot of gray area in between. So we have this idea of her, she's organizing everything, and then she walks over and her journal, she's like the journal entry. It's just her in like the desert, again, with the bear and everything. It looks like the pyramids, and she's going to relate to Daigo and her later on. But she talked last episode about the desert representing like her isolation and her loneliness. So here, in her journal entry, she's drawn her with a tent. So she's making a home in the desert. She's made a home in the loneliness and isolation, and she's trying to work with it the best that she can. And hey, don't knock somebody for doodling. Don't knock somebody from doodling. I doodle all the time. So Emiri seems to be one of her friends from school, and she's like, and the question is, how are things going? And she's like, she's like, could you be more discreet? And she's like, well, I don't mind if you read it. And she's like, but it's a journal. So I wonder too I wonder if her saying that it's a journal, if when the sister found the book, if it really was her actually writing out a journal about her and her sister, and then when her sister found it, she lied and said it was a novel instead about different characters so that the sister wouldn't realize it was about her. That could have been, but I don't know. I do think it's interesting that they have the big discussion about what that text means. We'll get to it. So she talks about the schedule. She's like, hot pot, rice bowl, ginger pork, sashimi. Now, I don't know if what she means is that by hot pot, it's like the next day you have leftovers. I don't think so. I think she makes the same things 2 days in a row. We are similar because at dinner time, I would usually have I'd make a meal, but I'd make enough for it that I could feed myself the next night. I grew up on leftovers. My family were big leftover people, so we did lots of leftovers. Or we'd always have leftovers. That way, if the next night, if my mom cooked, you didn't like what she made, you could have leftovers from the night before. Because my mom was like, if she went to that trouble making the food, you were going to eat it. But if you didn't want what she made that night, you have the option to eat leftovers, or you're going to eat what we made. That was always the rule. And then she said they have udon for lunch every day. I am a bit guilty. I get into habits where I just get on a kick. Like at work, we have a cafeteria at the school that I'm at, and there's been this type of chicken strip that they bought. They got these special types of chicken. They're just chicken strips. That's all they are. But the breading is it's like catfish breading. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like this really mealy breading on the chicken strips. But it's like if chicken strips were battered in fried catfish batter. That's what they taste like. They're amazing. And I've been stuck on them for 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks I've been I could get something different. Or I know this good. And so I could just have it again. So yeah, that's I feel for Makio. I wish I could get more into hot pot though. I did hot pot for Delicious and Dungeon, and it was good. It was a lot of work. And I think that maybe I'm just making it more hard than it is. Maybe hot pot is easier than I think it is. But yeah. She's like, well, I haven't replied yet. I should get on that. This part doesn't really, usually when people text me, I'm not like Makio. I'll usually respond very quickly. But she's like, Makio-chan, you haven't replied in a week. Are you alive? And it's from Daigo. I don't have a problem with this, but I do have a friend who is an adult who has ADHD, and she kind of gets on a kick where she'll text you for hours on end, one night, and then you won't hear from her for a month. and then she'll be back on it again, and you're just like, and she's the same way. She just forgets about stuff and moves on, or she's so busy, she has a son, so she's like so busy with her kid and her family that she'll forget and be like, oh yeah, and then come back to it. So yeah, she does end up, so I understand people that are like that. And she's like, I have some news. So Daigo goes over like, oh my God, you've adopted a child. So again, we established that Makio does not feel the need to talk in great detail about events that other people would consider highly important news. And granted, Makio, I feel like Makio is avoiding one of the big conversations in the room that needs to happen. And she kind of talks about it with Asa, but Makio is, Asa's mom's sister. They were family, and they were presumably very close when they were younger. And then as they grew up, they were more estranged. But she hasn't fully grieved her sister dying yet. So there is a part of Makio that has not been able to grieve properly, maybe how she needs to. And grieving is different for everyone. So who's to say if she is going to even grieve that way? But I feel like Makio has kind of been so absorbed in taking in Asa and getting settled in this new environment and figuring out what to do that she's kind of neglected, or she's the type of person that hyper focuses on things because maybe she has some neurodivergency and she forgets about other things, like telling her bestie that she's adopted a kid. Also, I don't know if you've seen Steins Gate Zero, but there is a blonde character in Steins Gate Zero who looks a lot like Daigo. And the whole time Daigo was had all these facial expressions like, wow, what? Oh, I kept thinking of that character from Steins Gate Zero. So if you know who I'm talking about, comment down below. But she kept reminding me of that person. You're acting like a parent all of a sudden. It's unbelievable. So you're Asa-chan. I heard from Makio. I'm Nana Daigo. She's like, 15. That's crazy. I like that, the conversations in this series are so authentic and they're so genuine. It feels like you're just watching people just converse for real. Like Daigo saying that's crazy. I find myself saying things like, that is so wild. It's crazy. It's wild. I find myself saying those phrases too in conversation. So to see someone do it and Asa doesn't quite get it, she's like, why did you say it's crazy? What's crazy about me being 15? She's just saying, wow, isn't that something? Mm-hmm. Can I make tea again? I can if my cinnamon isn't dead. So when she says, if my cinnamon isn't dead, she's talking about characters in her book. She's like, when did this room get so clean? And she's like, I could actually sit down. And she's like, I don't know about that bare shoulder look. And she's like, wait, does cinnamon actually die? So they're talking about, their conversation. It's like Daigo and Makio have been friends for so long that their conversation just flows like this. It goes from one topic to the other, and Asa cannot keep up. Daigo is asking about the character Cinnamon in her books, and if that character has died, just like Shingo asks if Ruby is going to come back in the books. And Asa doesn't realize, because Asa's not read her books, that that's what they're talking about. And then Makio is also talking about her outfit. It must be mummified by now. And they're like, are we even having the same conversation? Yeah. Also, I want to talk about their fashion. I really love the white skirt with the black leggings and the orange, cold shoulder top that Daigo has. Love that. I don't like cropped tops. I like long tops. So as cute as Asa's outfit is, the crop sweater is maybe it's a little too cropped for me. I know some of you are saying that's not cropped at all. This auntie thinks it's a little cropped for me. And then Makio looks like the most androgynous thing in the world. She's like, David Bowie would be proud. I definitely think that Makio gives off a lot of androgyny, but I think it's just because she's kind of lanky, which can relate, girl. So yeah, and she's like, oh yeah, I've never seen two grown-ups act like friends. I think it is kind of cool because when you're younger, especially around Asa's age, the only adult interactions that I was ever around as a kid were parents. So when you see parents interact, it is different than to see two single people without kids talking. There's a difference. There's a difference because your conversations are about different things. They just naturally are most of the time. And I can't say that because some parents are just as eccentric as them and have completely child-centered free conversations. But I like that Asa is figuring out that adults can converse like friends like she does with her friends. She's never seen lousy grown-ups. Maki is kind of self-loathing there, but I wish she wouldn't be. Grown-ups wouldn't be busting a gut. That's crazy. So then Daigo offers to, get involved and make dinner. And she's like, I brought stuff to make gyoza. She's like, don't ask me. I was planning on making dinner for you two, but now you two are going to help. She's like, this isn't grown-up talk. I love Asa viewing the conversation like it's an entirely different language and it's this exotic thing. Them going to this Indian kind of cultural style is reminding me a lot of Revolutionary Girl Utena. If you've seen that series, it's reminding me of that. But I also like that Makio's outfit kind of has a little Chinese-esque element to it with the different cords on the side. But yeah, these adults that have known each other forever kind of have their own language as best friends. So yeah, Asa's like, I want to try to do things. And I like that we established that even though Asa and Makio have some things in common, there is a bit of difference between the two of them. Asa volunteering to cook and clean is something Makio wouldn't do. So she doesn't quite know why Asa chooses to do those things. And she's like, well, I don't want to tell Asa what to do, but in telling her not to do it, you are telling her what to do. And Daigo's like, look, you once came to me about how you couldn't even do the simplest of things. And she's like, Daigo. And she's like, that doesn't seem very grown up. And she's, oh yeah, because when she says here, she's like, I helped you. And that's when Asa says she doesn't seem very grown up. Yeah. I think one of the things that Asa's mother has chided Makio for in a lot of this is the fact that the mom viewed her sister as being immature and not being emotionally adult and able to take care of herself. And Daigo's like, I've had to help you do a lot of things on your own. I definitely feel like there is a neurodivergency to Makio, but I totally relate to her in a lot of ways. And I really like her character. And, Makio gets kind of embarrassed and Asa's like, I've never seen this side of her before. And she's like, look, this is a good opportunity. We're Team Bao. We are making these gyoza. You know what makes gyoza so great? You can fill them with anything. Women who rap. So, we get into there and we cook up this. We cut the stem off the eggplants. We mince the cabbage. So, I want to see. She's like, this reminds me of your dog. So, I want to see what they put in the gyoza. What they say at first, they said she's like a corgi, which I don't think Asa's like a corgi. Corgis are very, they think that they're top dog. Corgis are very outgoing and they are pushy and they're stubborn, and they think that they are in charge. But I don't view Asa like that. The Shiba is definitely, I think, better. It's cute. So yes, they have the leek. What all do they put in this? And the eggplant. And then mincing. I did it my home glass that this guy took my place. She's like, maybe he liked you. And she's like, no, he just liked green onions. Okay, so it wasn't leeks, it was green onions. So, okay, so we have we have the meat. And then what else did we have? We had the cabbage. We had the onion. Yep. And then there was also, what else was there in there? What else other than the cabbage and the green onion? What was this one stuff that they put in there? Yep. Don't worry about measuring in the seasoning, and then you just mix it all up round and round in one direction. So then Daigo talks about how she had this crush on this Chinese guy that taught her how to make gyoza. She's like, every time I make gyoza, it reminds me of him, that jerk. And then Makio's like, then don't make gyoza. Oh, eggplant. It was eggplant, cabbage, and the onion. Okay, there we go. Add some ground sesame and noodle soup broth. I like the fact that, at first, I didn't know, if the show was going to kind of, ship Makio with Daigo because, Makio, we haven't really seen anything out of her. Makio gives me such, an asexual vibe that I absolutely see her just being kind of platonic friends with Daigo. And the more we're around them in this episode, I'm like, no, these are just two lady friends that are BFFs. They remind me of, me and my BFF. Just two really good friends. And I like that. I like the platonic love that they seem to have for one another. And we'll get to Shingo when we get to Shingo. But I thought this part was good too, where we talk about all these homemade meals. There is a question if, because Makio's sister from the beginning has kind of had this air about her that she had expectations of what you should be as an adult, that you should be like, in her mind, she's like, she kind of seemed to look down on Makio because Makio wasn't a wife, she wasn't a mother, she wasn't domestic, she wasn't fitting all of these heteronormative gender roles that the mom was taking on. And she was kind of mad that she was doing her own thing this way. But then you see like Asa eating these look like little meals. They don't look like bad meals, but they just look like very, very simple, very plain. So the question is, was Makio's sister, was she a good mom? We might touch base into that. Because see, she seemed to get on to Makio for not being what she was, but what was she good at what she was trying to do? It's so crazy to see, like, they have the same eyes. They look so similar, the sisters do. And she's like, yeah, this is good. But she doesn't remember what it was. And there's such a sadness to this moment because it's like her realizing she didn't pay attention to anything her mom made. Like, she doesn't remember anything and like what made that food special. And food is really special. Like, it brings people together and it gives you memories of things. Like, I'm a foodie, so I could say that. But like growing up, my cousin and I, we talk about how like my late grandmother that passed, she always made these like really watery instant potatoes. They were like the instant potatoes, you just got a packet and you just added water and like butter to it. And they were really mushy and they were really like kind of like watery and flavorless. They were really not great potatoes. But my cousin and I talk about it every time we meet up, like for Thanksgiving. We'll be like, remember Grandma's potatoes? They were the instant potatoes. And she's like, yes. And it was just such a memory. Like, you remembered her making those every year. And you would have those nasty potatoes whether you wanted them or not. Everyone would get some because that was like her thing. And then, like, just food that you eat at a family's house. Like, at my other grandmother's, when I was a kid growing up, we'd watch, on Saturdays, you'd have the Smurfs and the Snorks back to back on TV, and she'd have a big thing of SpaghettiOs, and you just eat SpaghettiOs and watch the Smurfs. Like, that was like a noon, every Saturday at noon, my parents would drop me and my brother off, and we would do that for like a couple hours. And I just remember that. Like, you tie that food to that memory. And the fact that Asa's 15, but she can't remember anything tied to her mom's cooking is interesting. This made me want to make gyoza. Seriously. Like, I wanted to make it so bad. And Daigo kind of gets onto them for not having, like, shared lines with one another, but I don't blame them because they live together. I mean, it's kind of like, why not? That looks amazing. I want to eat it right now. I don't blame Asa for digging in. It's so good. And then I love this moment with the two of them as friends. It's so cute. That is so awesome. I love it. Of them sharing the picture with her. Also, Daigo matching her nails with her outfit. Classic. My bestie would do that too. How are things going? Does the friend know about your parents? She does. So, Daigo kind of puts Asa's worries at ease because Asa's like, what's the meaning behind this text? What's going on? I love that they have a philosophical discussion about the, like, breakdown of the syntax of a text. That's so good. Because she's like, look, your friend is being concerned and asking, like, she chose her words carefully. How are you? Like, are you okay? What's happened since? She's like trying to be casual, but she's also kind of conveying that she cares. She's putting all these complicated feelings into this one text. And I like that Daigo is like, I like that about you. You explain these things in detail. And so I like that they basically tell Asa, they're like, you can respond to her how you think you need to because, she's put this care and thought into this text. As long as you put some care into the response, you're going to be good. Also, Daigo making cake too? Girl can do everything. And so she just says, I'm doing okay. And I like that the friend responds back with the little emoji, like she's happy to hear that. So see, like, but it's so crazy because there is, like, some people get really anxious about what to text. And I will admit that sometimes, like, I'll text something and I always have to put, like, exclamation points and stuff because otherwise I think it comes off as, like, it's not the tone I mean for it. And I've had friends send things and I used to technology can really mess things up sometimes, because my friend texted me a few months ago and it was just like there was only just periods as punctuation and it came across as very short, and I was like, is she mad at me? Did I say something bad? And then I finally like texted and I was like, is everything okay? I'm sorry if I said something to offend you. And she was like, no, I'm driving in my car and I just told I talked to my phone to say what to say because I couldn't text because I was driving, and it didn't put the right punctuation. And I was like, oh. But stuff like that happens and people overthink talking to each other. So it happens all the time. I also love that this series does the tiniest little details, like her zipping up the side boots. Like that little detail, they didn't have to animate that, but they did. So then Daigo says, why don't you reach out to Kasamachi-kun about money and stuff? I mean, that appetite of hers, it's going to be a huge hit to the household. And I was like, why reach out to Kasamachi? I'm like, is he a sugar daddy? But I feel like maybe he works in finance or he works in insurance or something, and maybe knows some like ideas or tips that he can give her. Or Daigo knows that Shingo Kasamachi still has a thing for Makio and would be happy to help out with any finances if they needed it. And she's like, you could take advantage of the situation. But maybe she's meaning just ask for some financial help. Maybe. Maybe, we shall see. And this is going to be the thumbnail. Your whole life is about to change. That's going to be the thumbnail. That's such a good shot. I love that shot. Because, yeah, her life is going to change. Like, you've brought this person into your house, and she's 15. Like, yeah. She's like, I should get back to work. You can let me know when you want to sleep. And I like that Asa stops her to say, thank you for saying that I could be sad when the time comes. And she's like, I wanted to say thank you. And this moment for Asa is similar to the moment with Shingo that we don't know about yet, but it's the idea that you don't realize the impact your word. Either one of two things happens. Makio views it as, which she's going to talk about later with Shingo, as your words have such impact. And your words, you have to be very careful what you say because they could negatively affect somebody. And she views it from a negative perspective. Whereas Shingo and Asa are like, what you said has helped me. What you've said has changed my life for the better. And Makio has no clue what they were talking about. So, Asa and Shingo coming from it at a positive perspective and Makio from a negative one. And she's like, well, how you feel is no one's business but your own. No one has the right to shame you for it. She's like, if I ever get sad, I'll let you know. And she's like, I'll let you know if I ever need to as well. They're going to get there. I feel like at some point before this season is over, they're going to cry on each other's shoulders. There is going to be some sadness being expressed between the two of them. But they're going to work together for now. And she's like, I'm a good for nothing downer. So I'll ask you to go easy on the pressure. Ha! I feel bad for Makio in a way because Makio views herself as negative and she views herself as a downer. And I feel bad that she feels that way because I think she feels as if she drives people away from her, and Shingo might be an example of that. But she's like, don't put pressure on me. She's like, I'll probably disappoint you. And Asa she's like, pressure. Oh, that kind of pressure, like what my mom always did. You can't even do this much and stuff like that, right? And Makio's like, oh, she's like, Roger, no pressure then. And that moment's pretty important because Makio, the sister being that kind of blunt and being like, is this all you can do? That affected Makio and has traumatized her for years. And Asa just kind of brushes off being like, yeah, my mom can be harsh like that sometimes. She doesn't mean anything by it, whatever. It's crazy how one person being that way can deeply affect someone, and for someone else, they just brush it off like it's nothing. Maybe it's not nothing. Maybe Asa's just kind of ignoring it for now. We'll see. So then she's like, well, I want to talk about this. She's like, can you get yourself takeout? And she's like, you look amazing. She does. The dress, she's like, you're different from your usual self. And she goes to the shop to meet up. Here's my thing. She did dress up. I'm kind of torn because I think that, does she still like Shingo, or is she just dressing up out of decorum and to be considerate and to do it for Asa? She's like, well, I need to ask him for advice. I might as well look my best. And, I'm doing this for Asa, so that's what I'm going to do. I don't necessarily think that she is still in love with him, but she clearly respects him, and she clearly wants to show the best side of herself to him. So I think that's important. But she's not like, she didn't dress up when Daigo came over. It's a different vibe for a different person. And we're talking about Shingo. So, because what does he say there? He says, can I get your signature, sensei? And she's like, what? Stop it, Kasamachi-kun. He wouldn't be my type, just looking at him. But the moment he opened his mouth, I'd be like, okay, we're good. Yeah, he's like, you all look displeased as always. He's not bad. He's handsome. He's just not, like, the type I would usually consider myself to like. But then the voice. Yeah. He also matches his eyes to his tie. So he says it's been a while. Yeah. She says, sorry for the sudden invite. But he's like, it's fine. Like, he's not mad to see her, He clearly still cares about her. I'd show up anywhere with one call from you. Okay, now look. I don't think he's married. I don't think he's seeing anybody, because that's a line. Like, if somebody was like, you just say the word and I'll be there. Even if you're just friends, that line alone, I would overanalyze that line and overthink that line and be like, does that mean that you're, like, still into me, but you understand if I'm not feeling the same way? That's what that line reads to me. It reads to me like he is still interested, but he knows that she's probably not. And so he's fine with just being her friend. And man, have I been in his shoes as well. So I see where he's coming from. But yeah. Like, coming right up. Yep. He's like, did Ruby die at the end? And she's like, for Kasamachi-kun, thanks as always, Makio Kodai. You left that ambiguous, like she's actually alive. Here's the thing. Also, if you're just her friend and I feel as if he's resigned himself that he doesn't think they can get back together. So he's just like, okay, well, we'll just be friends, and that's fine. But he's also having her sign his book. Like, I just feel like I feel like if she asked him to date again and they talked it over and communicated and she had changed to where he realized that she was okay with him being in her life that way, I think it would be amicable. We'll see where that goes. If they don't end up together, fine, whatever. They can be platonic friends. But there's like the romantic in me instantly was like coming out being like, yes. But they may not. She may be like, no. And honestly, I feel like there's no way they're going to get together anytime soon because she's got Asa to worry about. Although, having two people, I'm getting the cart before the horse. We're just going to imagine that it's not going to happen. Yeah, and she's like, you are a keen reader. It was a good book. She's like, I'll write more about Ruby if a sequel gets picked up. She's like, I feel bad for them, the characters. So the book seems to be like Ruby, and then there's this other kid, the guy with the blonde hair and the secrets. Here they are, yet I can't tell their story. That was a creepy way to put it. And he's like, it's not creepy. These characters are like your kids. I feel as if you can kind of see where the disconnect between them was, because he seems like a guy that wants to have kids and he wants a family. She definitely comes across as someone who does not want kids and is not emotionally stable to have a family that way. And then as he tries to have this sentimental moment with her, she interrupts, like she completely ignores him to ask for the grilled sandwich. And he's just kind of like, oh, like I feel like she misses a lot of social cues, and she misses the social cue from him in this moment that he's trying to have an intimate one-on-one with her. She misses that and orders a sandwich instead. And he's like, you can sense the disconnect between them. Yeah. Cause he's kind of like, damn it. I was trying to like have a little heart to heart with you and you just completely ignored me, but she didn't do it out of malice. She just didn't get the cue. So you can really see how he likes her, but there is a disconnect. They're not quite connecting, right? And he's like, are you even listening to me? And I feel like she's not intentionally not listening to him. She just has a lot of hard times focusing on social things like that. He's like, so speaking of kids, what is she, in middle school? And she's like, she's 15. And he's like, don't take this the wrong... I like that he brings it up because he's like, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I'm going to bring this up. He's like, I'm not hoping to get back together. So, okay. He says he's not hoping to get back together. I think because he doesn't feel like it's going to work. And so he's not, but I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. He may not be hoping to get back together, but if she asked, I think he'd say yes. I'm just tossing it in the wind. I think if she said yes, I think if she asked, he'd say yes. And she's like, what? When I heard you were taking in a kid, I was annoyed. He's like, when we were a thing, you used to talk about how you never wanted kids. Now, I want to point out something as a woman and as someone who can relate to Makio in this instant. Wanting kids and having kids are two very, very different things. And I feel as if I were him, I would be very annoyed and would be rightfully annoyed if she adopted a baby after she told him she didn't want kids. I think that if she adopted a baby after the fact, he could be like, you didn't want kids, but you've got a baby now. So how is that different? And some women don't want to give birth. Some people have nightmares of dying in childbirth, or they don't want to give birth, or they don't want to have sex, or they don't want to do those things. And that is well within their right to feel that way and not want that. Some people don't. And some people don't want a family or kids. That's just not for them. They don't feel like they have the money to do it. I think, I fully support her decision as someone who's in a similar boat to not want kids and feel societal pressure for them. But I also don't blame him for ending their relationship if he wanted children and she said no. That's a very real and decent reason to end a relationship. If you can't agree on that very important thing, then yeah, it's probably not going to work out. But I do think that her adopting a 15-year-old who is highly self-sufficient, does not really need Makio to do anything for her, is completely different than wanting kids. I think that's a totally different scenario. And I think if he saw Asa, and he says he wants to, I think if he saw their dynamic, he would realize it's not really her parenting. It's kind of the opposite. Asa's taking care of Makio as much as Makio's taking care of Asa. So maybe he needs to see that dynamic to know why it works for Makio the way that it does. But I don't blame him for bringing it up though. And so I couldn't figure it out. And then I like that Makio kind of looks to the side, like she looks kind of annoyed in this moment, like she's trying to think of how to say it. I like his reaction of, oh, how are you taking this? He's like, I realized it hurt more than I realized. I think in that moment, he's saying, look, I don't want to get back together. I'm not hoping that that's the case. He's like, but I've realized that it hurt when you took in a kid after you told me you didn't want kids, because that was one of the reasons that we broke up. And it's kind of, to me, in my opinion, it's showing that he still has feelings for her. He's just accepted that she's not going to return those feelings. And he's just being like, well, then we'll just be friends. And that hurts. That hurts because I've been in both of their shoes. I've been in the position of liking someone and they don't like you back. And so, but you care about them. So I've been in Shingo's shoes where it's like, I just met someone like that a few days ago and they're now married with, they've married another woman and it's great. They're perfect for each other, but I liked this person and they didn't like me back. And it's like, you can either stay friends with them or you can completely cut them out of your life. And I cared for them enough because we'd been friends for a long time that I didn't want to cut them out of my life. So it's fine. And I don't feel those feelings I had for them. It's funny how time changes things. Those feelings that I had for them 20 years ago, I don't share now. So it's like I've moved on from that. That's not the case. And then there's other people that I saw another person that they wanted to date me in high school. And I was like, no, I just don't feel attracted to you. And we're still friends and they've moved on and it's fine. But in his case, he's like, I think he still has feelings for her, but he knows that they're not going to be reciprocated. So he's just like, that's all, end of story. And she's like, I feel like she's trying to struggle to say something. And he's like, well, you want to talk about finances. Yes. Until she graduates and lands a job. She's like, I'm going to need to figure out how to pay. I have no clue what she needs or what I can do for her. Like, there is kind of like, there is a helplessness to her where Makio's like, I don't know how to do things. She's like, I'm not the most savvy in how to adult. She's like, I'm not good at adulting. I need friends that know how to adult to help me adult. And she's like, Shingo, you know how to adult with finances. What should I do? And he's like, are you moving? That apartment's small for the two of you. And she's like, well, I own the apartment, so I don't want to leave anytime soon. And he's like, wait, you bought the apartment? And she's like, yes, 6 years ago. And he's like, we were dating back then. And she's like, well, my series had happened to take off, so... And he's like, I had no idea. He's like, you're terrible at sharing important stuff, you know that. She's like, I never thought my work would sell that well. I felt like I'd awakened from the dream if I told anyone. I can understand her feelings, so she's like, I had this money, I could buy this apartment. I didn't want to, like, the feeling to end, so I thought if I just did it in secret, nobody would know, and it wouldn't, it would keep the dream going. But also, if you were dating him at the time and you didn't tell him that you bought the apartment, that's kind of crazy too. And he's like, that's just like you. I like that there's a little bit of an infection in his voice. Like, he knows she didn't buy the apartment out from under him to undermine him or because she didn't trust him. She was thinking about how it connected to her dream. And in that moment, she was just thinking of, it was a little self-absorbed, but not like in a mean way. And I think he's kind of like, yeah, okay, that is you. Like, I think he still harbors like a little bit of, he cares about her and he loves her. I think he would date her if she asked him, but he doesn't think that's going to happen. Have you filed a petition for guardianship? And he's like, well, you're going to need it so she can get her parents' life insurance. Was there a copy of the policy? And she's like, I don't know. I haven't been to their house. He's like, you need to go look for it. And he's like, well, what else is there? And then I feel like, that's setting up what's going to happen in the next episode. I feel like he's trying to think of what else to tell her. And for Makio to have this conversation with him, to be like, this has nothing to do with finances, what she's talking about. She's just like, she sleeps a lot. And, during the day, I think she's trying to heal her wounds. I think she's tending to her wounds to process what's happened internally. If that's the case, is shaking her awake and forcing her to find closure the right thing to do? For her to be like you can tell she confides in him a lot, showing how close their relationship is, because she's like, if I take her to that house to get all the insurance and stuff, is that going to open up all these wounds she's been working to heal? Is that going to be a good thing? Should I be doing that? She's like, it scares me. And he's like, I can't believe it. You view most human interactions as scary by default. I bet you were nervous to reach out to me. And you signed up for this. Yeah, he gets her. He gets her really well. And she's like, of course I'm scared. I'm dealing with a 15-year-old. At that tender age, the smallest remark could change her for the rest of her life. It's terrifying. That's the look of a man still in love. I'm sorry. Call me a romantic, call me delusional, but no. And you can tell that Makio is projecting some of her own feelings, like she was talked to by Asa's mom at that age, and it affected her. And so then I like these, like, you may not like hearing this, but your remark changed my life too, And she's like, what did I say? And he's like, that's a secret. Oh, bitch! You gotta tell her at some point. Sir. Them's getting back together words. That's what them's are. I know you say you're not hoping for it, but got my eye on you, Shingo. I got my eye on you, you catty man with a beautiful, handsome voice. You. It's probably a good thing that Makio doesn't recognize. It's probably a good thing she's awkward about it. Oh, girl, I feel you. I do. What does he say there? What did he say there? Oh, he looks so smooth there. He's like, I'll be in touch. Well, at that point, what did he say to her? He says, but you're right. Oh, that they could. There's like tension between the two of them. He says, I want to meet her, this girl of yours. I want him to meet her too. Oh, there's so much sultry tension between them. He's like, when Ruby thinks back on her home in that one scene. I liked that part. Yeah, I feel like Shingo reads her stories to try to get into her head because he knows how like eccentric she is and kind of how socially awkward she is. And I feel like to get to know her better, he reads her stories because to see like how her mind works. That's my thought anyway. I feel like that's how he reads it. She bolted as if to run away. I think he understands that part of her personality comes out in her writing and he reads it to get a better understanding of her. I'm swooning for the two of them. I know they'll probably stay platonic friends and it's a long shot, but I really am rooting for them. I really am. Because he seems to understand her really well and accepts her for all of her quirks. And that's rare to find somebody that'll accept you for your quirks. So, and maybe she doesn't want a relationship. Maybe she wants to live alone. So that's also her prerogative. It's like I'm torn because I respect her wanting to live alone. And thus Daigo and Shingo are just her platonic besties. And I want to support her decision for doing that. But then there's another part of me that's like, he really cares about her and he knows her well and he accepts her flaws. And I'm like, girl, he seems like such a great guy and lock that down. But I respect her choice either way. But it talks about her losing her footing until she couldn't bear anymore. She crawled forward like a baby and tried to yell, but her voice tangled in her throat. And Ruby's character intentionally looks like Makio. As she sees the sister, was my voice always like this? How do I sound to you? Just when I want you to ask, you're not here. I feel like there's, again, projection of Makio and her sister not making amends and not connecting at the end in their relationship. Home was nothing but a shelter with a roof. And that, is that projecting that Makio felt like she couldn't connect with her family and that it wasn't like a real home, it was just a place. And then she's like, oh, I get that though. That face where she's like, why are you reading my stuff? Over vacation, one of my friends was like, I was talking about needing to get stuff recorded for YouTube and they were like, so what do you do? And I was like, I was explaining the channel and then my best friend was like, but she doesn't want you to watch the videos. And I was like, no. I feel like it's odd. It's odd, especially, it's not that I'm not ashamed of them. I love my work that I do and I love all my rambles and discussions I have on here, but I feel like if it's a friend that doesn't watch anime or if it's a friend that doesn't know, I don't know, because it's different. It's weird. It's like, I don't know. It's like a form of stage fright. It's like when you perform and your friends are in the front row. I don't know. There's no way to describe it. But yeah, what's that face for? And then she's like, we're going to have to go back and let's go through your stuff at home. And then we cut to the book, Home, I'm Going Home. But what is home? Is it a house? Is it a place with your family? What is it exactly? That is, them's the questions. I'm curious about, this feels like it is the sister pregnant with Asa, but I'm curious. Or maybe it's somebody else. I don't know. We're going to find out over the course of this series, I have a feeling. So yeah. What a great episode. I've talked for almost an hour about it. This was a fantastic episode. I loved it. But I'm really curious to see now what we're going to get next week with episode 3. So we shall see. But thank you all so much for watching my video, my rambles, and my discussions and the reaction. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Journal with Witch. And I'll see you then. Bye.